The Pine Tree Pulse. From the county to down east Maine. From Casco Bay to Mount Katahdin. We keep our fingers on the pulse of what's happening in Maine and across the nation. Brought to you by the Maine Policy Institute. Free markets, free people. Pine Tree Pulse begins now.
Back again for the Pine Tree Pulse podcast, and we're continuing our series of conversations with folks that are running for governor of Maine in 2026. Joining us for this particular podcast is Owen McCarthy, who actually announced, I guess about a month and a half ago or a month ago. When was the official announcement?
The official announcement was early, like June 10th or 11th.
Yeah, so about a month ago.
I was exploring for a bit before that, so explored, turned it over, and it's been about a month.
You want to explain exploring for a minute too? Because I know that that's like actually a technical political term. Like,
yeah.
You know, it has implications for what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do and stuff like that. Why do people do that?
For me, it was an opportunity to get out and say that I'm interested, but I'm listening to see like what other people care about. And then how does a candidacy of Owen McCarthy match up with what they care about? And to be able to do some political activity without like going all in and saying like I'm running for governor.
Yeah. I'm
thinking about it. Would love to get your thoughts and opinions on it.
You allowed to raise money in the exploring
phase? Raise money in the exploratory phase also. Though there is a we're getting in technical land really quickly, but there's a gray line of like how much you can raise in that period of time.
Well, now you've educated the audience, and it's only been about a minute and a half.
Yeah,
so how
exactly. Yeah. We'll keep it crisp, the technicality.
Indeed.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Owen McCarthy's running as a Republican, and it's
Yes,
it's already developed into a field with several people in it, obviously, and there's still names out there that might jump in as well.
But we need a big field. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of where I've been starting with a lot of the people that have been joining us, is that there's going to be a lot of people to choose from, which is one of the reasons we are doing this series in the first place. Is we're trying to give people a sense of who you guys are.
Yeah.
So the first one's always the easiest question for the guests on this podcast who are running. For those who might not know Owen McCarthy, who are you? Like, where did this idea of running for governor come from? You know, tell us a little bit about your background, like sort of, you know, who you are and why you think that you're ready, able, should be voted for, et cetera.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Let me start with the roots, how I got here, and then I'll talk about the why and kind of what I could bring to the table. So, like, I grew up in northern Penobscot County, almost Aroostook County, northeast and west, south of me was Aroostook, in a town called Patten, Maine. The son of a third-generation logger and a second-generation lunch lady. Grew up in this little trailer on my grandfather's land. But at the time, you know, I was going through the school system. I had a great public school education. We were fourth, not Katahdin High School, but Maine was fourth in the country in schools, and had a great experience. Learned a lot about how to lead from growing up in small-town Maine. Went on to the University of Maine. Studied engineering, and it was really there that I learned a lot about how to like take a problem, break it down, and come up with a solution. And I think that experience in my life at UMaine was one of the more transformational ones. I think, Matt, you were the vice president of the student body when you were there. You got your gavel.
I got the gavel.
Hand. Yeah.
It's in my desk.
Yeah. So
you and I had the same job about 6 or 8 years apart.
I was the president. You vice president.
I was briefly president too.
You were. Oh, interesting.
Well, I mean, you know, student government is just ridiculous, right? I mean, there's so much volatility in it.
We had a bunch of turnover.
There was, I think it might have happened in your era too, where you had like, say, you know, somebody who didn't really want to be president, like, you know, like ended up being president because that person graduated, left college, or something happened or whatever, and then they end up moving up, but they don't really want to move up, so they actually appoint who they think should be the president behind them, and then they quit, and then that person moves up, and then they just go back to their old job.
We had someone that did that, and then we had a recall petition on the student body.
You had a recall?
Yeah. And someone resigned at the dead of the night.
Wow.
Like there were, you know, scandal there. That I was not there at the time. Like I was elected after that, but that was while I was there. Anyways, so engineering, like great background. Was a pulp and paper scholar, so graduated and I've been in almost every paper mill in New England through that background. Went on, moved to Boston for 5 years, so did leave the state for a bit, but that was while my wife, who's from Dixfield, was in optometry school, so she's an eye doctor here in town, and went down there while she was there. When she graduated, I moved back. I'm a couple-time entrepreneur, but at the time I had started this company called MedRhythms, which
is the current company, right?
Current company.
Yeah.
We just hired a new CEO that's going to come in and take it to the next level, which we're excited about. And we help people improve their walking if they've had a stroke, and we use how rhythm and music can rewire the brain. And we built a medical device that we've taken through clinical trials, FDA, got a Medicare code, and helping people all over the country and the state. And really the idea was like, how do you take this great science that's only in Boston at the Academic Medical Center and bring it to places like Patten or West Enfield, where my co-founder is from. So built the company, raised $60 million in venture capital, hired people here.
How did that come from being an engineering student? I mean,
yeah, how the company come about?
Well, I mean, I can sort of tangentially understand the connection, right? But like, you know, the engineers that I knew going through college weren't necessarily entrepreneurial. Hey, let's go start a business, right? They have obviously things that they'd like to do and work for a company and whatnot. What made you get that bug in you and you know, start stuff like that?
A couple of things. Well, one, I became an entrepreneur by accident. Like one time I showed up at I was exploring a new industry. This was prior to MedRhythms in 3D printing. And I was just really interested in what was going on in 3D printing at the time. And this was like 2013, 2012, and like it become a topic that was all over the news. I showed up at a professor's lab that was doing some really interesting thing with materials, how you could print wires and antennas directly into a product, and just started helping her on how to make it into a company. And eventually, and said like, oh, I love it. I love the idea of imagining a new future and describing the new future and getting the resources to go do it and hiring the team and going to make it happen. And so that got me into that. And then I'm thinking about watching my dad grow up. My dad being a logger, he had his own log truck. He worked for himself. He had autonomy over his own schedule. He worked really hard, but he never really worked for someone before.
Yeah.
And so like I think
called his own shots.
Yeah, called his own shots.
Yeah.
So I think that had been ingrained in me. I didn't realize it until I started doing it. And then MedRhythms came about, and it was, you know, my best friend from undergrad was basically at Spalding Rehab in Boston, helping people manually with music, with a guitar in a hallway. People were getting better, faster, and more effectively. And he came to me and said, Owen, how do I reach more people? And that's where the company was born. And we basically said, well, okay, I'll help you out, Brian. We will take this out of the lab and figure out how to reach the millions of people that need it from there. So, well,
I certainly get the impulse to create, be your own boss and whatnot, but you mentioned $60 million of venture capital, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that is a skill that I don't know if you can teach it. Like, I mean, it's something that you just, I guess, are driven to do. Like, you have to have a very specific personality to be able to even do that.
Yeah.
So yours matched, I guess.
It matched. You know, also,
did you feel immediately comfortable like walking into a room and pitching people on the idea of investing $1 million in something like that, or?
No. I mean,
had to be learned.
No, it's you have somewhat imposter syndrome when you start, right? When you're pitching these, but then you look around and you see the other people who have done it and the backgrounds they came from, and say, well, a lot of people started from the same spot. Like, and there was just like a hustle and a bet on yourself. And then there's a certain like thrill about, then you can go do it, right? Like once you get the money. But then it is a learned skill, right? Like the way you speak, how you frame the situation, how you talk about like the future, but now like what you're actually going to do. It's something that like you build with shots on goal, and you miss many of the shots on goal when you're doing it. So that's definitely.
Did you have anybody to Sherpa you up that hill a little bit? Anybody that helped you out, sort of develop those skills and learn how to do that?
Well, it's interesting. I would say at early days of MedRhythms, one of our first investors and the lead director on our board is this lady, Jean Hoffman. And Jean Hoffman was the CEO of Patten, which is a successful company from Portland. Welcome to Maine. It's in the animal health space, right? It's a generic drug company for animals. And her company had sold for $200 million. And so she had done this game before. And Jean's a tough lady. And like, definitely you really quickly like, polish the diamond, right? Like the diamond comes out of the rough when you work with Jean, and she helped out a lot in that process.
Very interesting. So the MedRhythms thing happened what year? I mean, how long ago was that? You said 6 years ago?
So no, we started it in 2015.
2015.
For the first 2 years, though, we did not raise venture capital. We were a therapy practice. We then went on to say we're going to build a product. And so it's really been 8 years we've been working on the product from concept through Medicare code.
Could you describe for me what the product how it actually does what you just described? I mean, basically using music to help aid people to walk more.
I'll tell you what the product is and then how it works. So it's someone in the mail gets 2 foot-1 sensors, a handheld device, and a set of headphones. And they will do a therapy session 3 times a week for 30 minutes they have a stroke walking deficit or living with Parkinson's and have a deficit. Those are the Movieven and Tandem that's on the market. How the science works is in your brain. If you hear a rhythmic cue, it activates your auditory and motor system at the same time. It syncs it. And so you can sync someone that's subconscious. And that's a different pathway than if you just walk normally. And you can slowly increase the speed or add cues and accent to get them to take a longer stride. They will follow along with it. They won't know they're doing it. If you train like that because of neuroplasticity, you have lasting results. So think it's like PT meets this new type of therapy that you do on your own in your home. And we get 40 data points for every step. So we know how someone's doing every session all the time. So there's that, that's sort of how it works. It can be applied to a lot of things. We only have 2 products out that have been through the FDA at this point. So yeah.
So it's going now, right?
Company's going. It's in commercial stage. It's in a place where we've solved. I've been saying like because we got to get to your other questions like why I want to run for governor and like all the other qualifications. Right.
It's a beautiful thing about a podcast, though. Yeah. You don't have to rush to it.
Yeah.
Right?
We can
tell your whole story here a little bit.
So we've solved what I call all the unknown questions, the ones that no one had solved before. Like
it's very Rumsfeldian of you, by the way.
Yeah. So like
known unknowns.
Yeah, that's true. Like how like can we make a product like this work? Can we translate it? Like does it work better than standard of care? Right? Like because it's never been done before. Can we get a Medicare code for it? Right? These are things that we didn't know. We just had a belief that we could do it, and they'd never been done before. Now we're at a point where people have scaled up medical devices at this point and figured it out. So we've hired a new CEO, a new chief commercial officer. Both of them come from the industry. Both of them are like seasoned at scaling it up at this point. And so it's at a place where, I've worked myself out of a job, which was the goal. The goal for me was like build something that lives on without me.
Yeah.
And so we're at that point. And so that really allowed me to kind of look around and think about what could be next and where my passions lie from there.
Interesting. Very interesting. Is there any sort of competitor in this space for what you're doing?
Not really. There's people that do like electrical stimulation for walking. That's been well formed. There's people that do like full exoskeletons. So like exosuit that you put on that are more for people that it's amazing. They can take paralyzed people and get them up and walking. Yeah. Right. There's some walking drugs in MS that like are supposed to improve, but like using rhythm and music, this rhythmic auditory stimulation, like we're the first out there. There's followers coming now.
Obviously, any sort of success, you're allowed imitators.
Yeah,
and stuff,
which is actually hopeful, right? Because it's like, okay, people see a giant market there, so they're building there, which is great.
Well, what's fascinating about that is that you look at this in so many different industries, right? Like that first player in the space, sort of creates a market that didn't previously exist. Maybe it should have existed. There was always sort of like a demand for something that would be like this, but somebody had to take the risk and sort of jump in the deep end of the pool a little bit and see if they could swim.
Yeah,
and oftentimes they can't, and they sink and they die. But oftentimes they're very successful, and that seems like that's kind of where you're at right now. Yeah,
and we've always taken the approach that like, let's maniacally focus on taking the next hill. Like, what's the next milestone? What's the next hill? Let's go get it, and did it on time. And I think that's been helpful, like on this journey to do that. Versus like, let's not get distracted by when capital was plentiful back 2 or 3 years ago. A lot of companies got distracted by let me do too many things. And then they just do all of them poorly, right? So. That's been really helpful for us in this process.
Well, very interesting. So that's a decent look at your background, obviously.
Yeah.
Now you're at this stage in life where maybe you're asking the question of what's next.
Yeah.
You've built this successful thing and you're now in a position to be able to do something else. Yeah. And so your answer to that question was, I'm running for governor.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that decision. Like what made you interested in thinking about doing that in the first place, and then of course thinking that you're qualified to do it, and that I'm the best person, and all the other things that go into making a decision like that. What made that happen to you?
It's a couple of things came together. Like first of all, as I look across Maine today, like I think for the people like where I grew up or like working class people, like it's. Like, I don't think if you work hard and play by the rules, like it's like you can live here like anymore. It's affordability is tough. There's not as much opportunity for the next generation as there was for me. And so to me, that problem has been on my mind for a while. It was exacerbated while I was on the trustees for the Humane System. And I was looking around saying, I don't know when the talent graduates, like where they're going to work, right? Like, and I don't know how they're going to afford to buy a house. And I see like decisions made about how we like set policy as like making them worse, making those questions. And so like that, and it's part of a larger system, so to speak, like a ecosystem, like being Maine. And I think, what we've done hasn't worked. And as someone, I am a political outsider, right? So like, that's a positive and a negative, depending on how you look at it. But like, it's a fresh approach, a new idea. I am an insider in Maine. Like I've been across every corner. I know a lot of people. I have an entrepreneur's ability to like envision the future, describe it, and like rally people towards it. And I'm all about problem and solution. Right. And so I know there's a lot of noise that comes, I can even see this follow-up questions in your head about like, how do you actually pull it through in Augusta, like all these things. But those are the things I think I bring to the table that are unique, that can be helpful as we navigate the next decade plus for our people that live here in our next generation.
So you talked a lot about it not being quite as easy today to be able to kind of, I hate to use the cliche, but like, drag yourself up by the bootstraps and create something out of yourself, right? The old bootstraps.
Yeah, bring the bootstraps.
Well, I mean, you describe a life growing up where you were in a trailer and you have a very small town upbringing and stuff like that. And I happen to share your opinion. If you're in that kind of an environment today versus when you or I grew up, it is not the same. It's not as easy to do that.
You need more muscles to pick yourself up with the bootstraps. Yeah.
My question is why? Like, so what exactly along the way has created that difficulty? Because to me, it's an incredibly complex answer, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, some of it is let's start with jobs and opportunities, right? Like we've gotten hammered in the state by the transition from the second to the third industrial revolution and the movement of our paper mills out of the state.
So you're talking about big macro trends nationwide.
Those jobs, and we didn't have a response for that, right? Like, and so like if you look at jobs that are ones that sell things across borders, like we've lost like 30,000 jobs there. As a state, we've gained them, but we've gained them in like business and insurance, which are all like concentrated in like Cumberland County, and so like rural areas have been hit pretty heavily there. Two, as that's about to happen, our education system has started to become unfocused on the foundational things, right? Like, our math and reading scores have gone the other direction, which I believe are important, right? Like, are things that...
Well, you can call a spade. They're in the toilet. They're awful.
They've gone from fourth to almost last, right? Like, and it's worse than states that people used to make fun of for their reading, right? Like, we're worse than that, right? And so that's not good, right? It's hard to...
Well, I've been told that it might just be bad test takers. That might possibly be the...
Well,
Sorry, I couldn't help myself a little bit.
All the bad test takers only live in Maine, actually. No. So that's a challenge. Housing, right? Like the things I think about in my head, like I organize everything under affordability, opportunity, and state spending, right? So like housing on the affordability side, it's not legal enough to build enough housing there here, right? It's hard to build. There's some state problems, there's some local problems, there's some workforce problems there, but we've essentially doubled in medium house prices in the state, and that's hard. And the incomes haven't kept up with that. It's not like incomes doubled in that same period of time, and so I think those are some of the factors, right? Like the removement of industry from a lot of places. That then the education's kind of gone downhill, and it's unaffordable to live here on housing. And then let's talk about energy. We've gone up the fastest in the country in the last 5 years, and that's also that's kind of like puts flame to that fire versus like helps stop it. So I think those are some of the things that have happened in the state.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that energy piece for a minute too. It's funny that is obviously very true, and everybody looks at their energy bill and they see disturbing rises in prices in a very short period of time.
Right.
And yet you look at Augusta and you sort of like see what they're, even putting in for bills, let alone debating and passing. And they don't really seem to be talking about the problem much. I mean, you certainly hear a lot about housing, and I have my criticisms of what they've done, but at least they're talking about it.
And there's an attempt to talk about it and an attempt to try. Right, in housing, right?
There's something. There's something to build off of. Yeah. And then, you talk about jobs and education and stuff, and there's things there in that space. But in energy, it just seems like it's like that great mysterious thing that no one seems to understand very well, but those who are setting policy are making a series of bad decisions along the way in the absence of anybody pushing back. And that's the thing that's driven me crazy, is that there's not this organized understanding of like what the renewable portfolio standard does and what the
like why is hydro not included above 100 megawatts or whatever, right?
Like, exactly.
It doesn't make sense. Right?
Like, well, why are we subsidizing the expensive energy and not the cheap stuff? And like it's and why, by the way, in a state that has enough trees that it basically makes us carbon neutral by simply existing.
We're 98.12% forest.
So why in a state like that is the main goal, which is definitely true, and Janet Mills has reiterated this time and time again, the main goal is like carbon neutrality and sort of carbon footprint stuff.
2040?
Yeah. Yes.
Which is close. This is close.
It's right around the corner, right? But instead of price, you see what I'm saying? Like they are prioritizing, the windmills and the solar farms and whatnot because of their clean energy, sort of reputation, rather than like somebody being able to afford to put oil in their house or be able to fill up their gas tank or something like that. Right. And that's where the disconnect has happened, is nobody is minding the store on price at all. And so all these bad policies go and nobody challenges them.
Yeah, it seems it's ideological versus like pragmatic and practical, right? Like it's like whenever I take a conversation, like sometimes I take a conversation that happens, say in Portland, and I translate it and I go to like Patten and try to like think about like, how would I have this same conversation? Yeah. Everyone would look at me like I'm nuts, right? Like if you start, cause they're like, oh, like I want to be able to afford to live, and like energy is doubled and like, this is tough. And so I always picture like, how do we solve for that? Mm-hmm. And I think, that's what like in my administration or in 2026, like that's what we need to focus on. Is like, let's focus on how do we make energy more affordable for working class people. And then, oh, by the way, it's easier to recruit companies to come here if electricity is more affordable.
Do you think it's because Republicans don't understand energy? I feel like that's part of the story here. Obviously, they kind of know what the bad things are. They know that it's bad that Janet Mills has these sets of policies. And so they're pretty decent about saying, hey, that's a bad idea. Let's stop giving a whole bunch of kickbacks and money to the solar industry. Yeah. Right? But what would you do to make it cheaper, right? They don't ever seem to have a very good answer for that outside of not doing the bad stuff. And that's the thing that kind of gets me a little bit about a lot of the people we talk to about energy, is there's like this absence, this vacantness in the knowledge base of how to even have a conservative energy policy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like there's three levers that you look, like I think that you look at to like hammer, like it's either you got to bring in more natural gas into the grid. You gotta figure out how to permit nuclear and bring it in, or we got to do more hydro or the sources of lower cost energy. And like that involves cooperation with other parties, like other countries or other states or other places. I mean, say like aside from like what you just talked about, like let's talk about the solar subsidies, and like that's a big part of the cost, and like all these other ones. But those are the places where you get at least lower cost energy generation is from there. And so one of the things that always has stuck out to me as I've dove into this is because we have intermittent energy from solar in like been built out a lot from December through February. It doesn't really work, but we don't have base layer energy that's there. So we have to bring in LNG for 3 months of the year at 10x the cost of NG, right? Which, by the way, has the same carbon footprint, just so anyone knows out there, like for anyone that's counting. And it's just like, it's a double whammy, like subsidy plus the fact that we're bringing in more expensive. And so we either need to work with New York or Massachusetts and the federal government and bring in more natural gas that way. We need to bring it in more from Canada, or we need to get more hydro from Canada, or we need nuclear, right? Like
one thing that does stand in the way of that, though, and this is also something that I'll probably ask you when we get to housing here a little bit, is some of the attitudes in Maine about allowing building like that. Like, I mean, obviously you had some of this with the CMP corridor. There's, like natural gas pipeline stuff that over the years has run into a lot of local resistance from people
we
that
love
don't want
our
to build
local
those
control,
stuff.
right? Yeah.
Well, we do, but that's kind of one of the things that stands in it's like almost bipartisan too, right? It's like, this isn't really like a Republican Democrat thing.
Well,
this
you look at the CMP corridor, the characters.
Very Republican character to that.
Yeah. There was a group, the groups that came out knocking doors on that had never knocked doors before. To together. So it's definitely has more some bipartisan flavor there.
So if you're going to accomplish that, though, I guess what I'm getting at is that you're going to run into resistance from people that have a great deal of local control and power and authority to do things that stand in the way of building something like that.
Yeah.
How do you bridge that gap? How does that end up being built, or some other alternative idea coming forth that doesn't, obviously cause the local resistance, right? Because ultimately, they don't want you to build something through their backyard.
Yeah,
right. I mean, if you get into the CMP corridor debate, which
I'm not saying we're doing that, right? Yeah,
totally.
Yeah,
I'm just, no matter what it is that we're arguing, whether it's putting a transmission line in, whether we're putting a pipeline in, whether we're doing something, we are changing the natural landscape around us somehow.
Yeah,
and probably building through towns that are very quiet and have ATVing and hunting and everything else. And that's what the objection for most of those things always is. And that's really not going to go away. So if you ever want to build anything, you're going to run into it, right?
I was talking, this is not energy related, but related, right? This is around like manufacturing and industrialization, right? Stuff. And I was talking with a local economic development person who I won't name what region they're in. And they were talking about two projects. One of the projects, and they were substantially similar. One of them has a lot of local pushback, and the other one went through pretty smoothly.
Yeah.
And what the difference was, the one that went through smoothly, they included the people in it, and they cast a vision about what the future could be differently for them, so they could see the why it could matter to them. And then they answered their questions, and they spent time with them doing it, right? And that was successful. Versus the other one, no one had.
So they didn't parachute in and just say, "We're doing this. We want you to say yes." They actually were partners in some way.
Correct. I mean, and I know that's really hard if you need like hundreds of communities to do that, right? So like, there's part of a pick the solution that like you can like concentrate and do that kind of work on. Mm-hmm. Versus the other one was no one had any information other than this was going to happen. And so like rumor mill sprouted up about all the negatives that could happen. Yeah. And it essentially killed the project. And so I think there's a way to go about it in addition to the what you're doing that also includes the why and the people in the process. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's So I think that is helpful. I also think this is a hypothesis I have. I don't know if maybe you have opposite examples. Some of the towns that have like the historic mill towns, I have this vision that they see themselves as places that build things and do things. And the comparison is this fish farm in Millinocket that is underway, going to be built, and they're dredging the old clarifier right now, and there's a lot of support for it. Some of the same team that was in the Belfast one that got shut down. Mm-hmm. And Belfast community the NIMBY showed up in full force. And Millinocket, they're like, great, this is great. We're bringing back the mill site. So I think there's something around like the rebirth of the old mill towns, because they're the most likely to want to look at development as a positive thing. But maybe not. Maybe some of the mill towns say like, I've turned a leaf on that. I don't want to do it anymore. Yeah.
It's a really tricky issue. And of course, as I mentioned a moment ago, it also touches on housing as well. I mean, I'm watching the debate over housing across the state, and there's so many different things that are kind of conflating together a little bit. And, there's this desire to build more because we're not building enough homes to keep up with people.
But that's the easy talking point. Like supply.
Correct.
It's a supply issue. We need more houses.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there are discussions about what to do about it. Like, what can we do to incentivize it? And you have the Ryan Fecteau model, which would be a very heavy-handed top-down approach. LD 2003 would be his bill that sought to do that. And accessory dwelling units and all the things that were included in that, obviously. And then you also have like the elements that are in towns that are basically opposed to development, right? Because it's going to affect traffic and it's going to make the neighborhood have a different character and so on and so forth. I mean, I hear it literally almost every day from people, even down here in Southern Maine, right?
Oh, particularly down here.
I think it's in Northern Maine too. This is a very New England and a very Maine characteristic, though. As somebody who's lived other places, it's amazing to me when I lived in those places how they proposed to build something and people just said yes. They were just like, okay, knock yourself out, make it. Oh, you want a mini mall there? Go. I don't care. You want condos? Yes. Like they just said yes, and maybe they said yes too much.
Yeah.
But in Maine, it's the exact opposite. It's like basically the default is no. It's going to change anything about anything, and I don't like the change. So I'd like to say no to that, right? Mm-hmm. So you have this acknowledgement we need to do more, but you have this feeling that I don't want to certainly do it in my backyard. So that's where the NIMBY stuff comes in.
Yeah.
how can you possibly marry those two things together? Because that's really the core of this issue, is that there's never a willingness to do the building that's necessary to really try to get yourself out of this.
Yeah. So we're not going to cram down local control. Like I feel that's important. Yeah. It's important. So like that's got to be there. Some things I've been thinking about. One is the state can, and I think you might have proposed this, I forget, or maybe the chamber did. So sorry for mixing it up, but move from, if you subdivide by more than 3 to you need DEP or DOT involved, move that number up, right? Just like loosen it up so like you can get some projects at the state level out of that area, and then do like what's been happening now, but more full force, like allow third-party review on that, right? Mm-hmm. So I think like that would help, right? Like on one piece of the bottleneck. On the local level, I think some towns you're never going to be like, look, you got to build X number of units to keep up. Like it just isn't going to work. But there are other places where you can either incentivize them if they overperform by more building permits or actually more building what they should build based on what the shortage is, or help them get access to resources to build infrastructure so they could build more units there. Mm-hmm. So like instead of looking at it from a negative lens, like there's places that won't build, if there are towns or cities that want to grow and want to build, reward them and give them extra dollars for that. And so like a carrot approach versus a stick approach on that. It's funny though, like I've been talking a lot about this issue. The more rural you get, the more this isn't the problem, right? Like, I was up in the county and I was like, we need to legalize housing, not subsidize. I was like saying that, and they're like, oh, and like, what are you talking about? I don't understand. I can get as many permits as I want. Like I could build as much as I want. And I just can't find an electrician right now. And then when I do, they're 2x the cost they used to be. Yeah. And then the plumber is, and then the carpenter says, wait, you're paying the plumber that? Like I need to get paid more. And so it just inflates. So I think, for those situations, it's both like get more people in workforce and or look at innovative solutions like, I think custom modular or some of these things are actually high quality, good solutions and could help in some of those areas.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always thought that one of the solutions could theoretically be to sort of redesign the system whereby we give towns money. And actually incentivize or otherwise sort of reward people who make decisions towards development. Like that was my criticism with LD 2003 was that it was basically heavy-handed and mandated that a town have like a one-size-fits-all approach.
Right. Yeah.
And I just like I don't like sticks. I don't like stop beating me with this stick.
Give me this carrot, and then the entrepreneurial ones that like want to sell a vision to the town and they're on board. You give them some reward for it. Yeah. And there's plenty of money that goes back to towns that we can figure out how to play around with, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so there's a there, I think.
Yeah. It's an interesting idea. I mean, I hate paying people off for stuff like that with state money, but it's like, just trying to get somebody to say yes to something is a decent enough idea. But down here in Southern Maine, it's always a no. And if it's not built here where the demand is, then it's really not going to be built. I mean, the other places you're talking about in the state, they have much lower demand because just the population centers aren't quite as dense. The job opportunities aren't quite as plentiful. And that's part of the problem in Maine is that there's not as many job opportunities in Presque Isle, for people to stay there if they'd like to, than there are down here. And so people come down here and they build down here or they try to, it's
volume.
It's a two Maines issue.
I agree. The volume is way out of scale difference. Yeah. The percent shortage isn't that much different. And some the stock is still lower by, off by the same percentage in a lot of places. Yeah. And so, 10 homes in some towns would be meaningful, right?
Yeah.
So, the other thing is I don't, we can't just fund it with state, right? Like money, right? 300,000 or 200,000 a home times 80,000 home shortage is billions of dollars, right? I mean, it's just math, right? Like it's so like you're gonna need to get private develop. Like it's been baffling to me as I've dove in that often there's everyone agrees on there's a housing shortage, and that we need more in the supply, the kind of supply, right? There's a debate maybe, but like there's a lot of good research that says any supply would be good in that, right? Like,
No, actually, if you start having the debate over which kind of housing is right and wrong, I think you've already lost the argument because
100%.
Because that's where you get into central planning. Like that's what happens with like the city of Portland. That's what happens with a lot of the people in Augusta. They want to. We don't have enough like workforce housing. Like we don't have enough low income housing. So we need to use state dollars to build the things that we need so that we can satisfy that demand and make sure that people can afford to live here and all that other stuff.
It's like whack-a-mole, though. Right?
It is. You will never have enough. You will never have enough. And I've always said to people, like, if you were to like, let's imagine that like Ethan Strimling's nightmare comes true, and like you just let loose the dogs of war on Portland, and you can just do anything you want. You can build anywhere, you can build anything, you can build any height, whatever. Who cares? If you did that, and they did what he's afraid of, which is just rich people housing, right? That's what he doesn't want to happen. That's what none of the progressives in Portland want. Is they don't want to have people who have high incomes basically building mansions and high income housing and turning it into like a very, very ritzy town, right?
Yeah.
But the thing about that is that when you do that, you take up a lot of that demand for something that those people have and you satisfy it, which means that whatever they have now is now available for someone else, usually upper middle class, right? It ends up matriculating its way through the
100%.
entire system.
Yeah.
And eventually, if you're a developer, right, it becomes pretty clear that the wealthy housing is satisfied. Like it's checkbox, right?
Yeah.
What do I middle income housing? I can build, more volume. I can build, I'm not going to make as much on each unit, but I'm going to build more of it, and there's going to be more people that are able to live in the thing that I'm building, and then I can make my profit that way. And then they build a lot of middle income housing, and they build a lot, and it just keeps going like that until you've actually satified demand.
Yeah.
When they got rid of rent control in the post World War II era, like that happened overnight.
Right.
Overnight.
Right.
And it just naturally flowed from the additional supply sort of making its way through the entire system.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing I hear, right, like that confuses me is that people are like, well, they know there's a problem. The developers they don't want them to make money, right? And I'm like, well, they need to make some money so they can get a bank to give them a loan, so they can continue to do this, so they can build units, because we have billions of dollars that need to come in to build what we need. Yeah. And so you need to have like a loop that happens there. And so, it's almost like developers are the enemy, even though they're the solution, which has been interesting.
Well, I think the idea is that profit's the enemy. I think that's where the philosophy comes into play here, because if you make any money on something, it is viewed as wrong or bad. And the thing that I don't think that those folks understand is that the incentive that exists because of the profit you can make on it is the thing that actually gets people to move capital from one area to another.
Right.
And actually build something and do the things that are necessary for everybody to prosper from the top down to the bottom.
Yeah. See, this is where my like engineer brain like runs up against like ideological rhetoric, like that comes in and then like does not compute. Like I'm like, I need money to build units to get there, right? Like so I'm with you there. It's interesting too. The other thing that I looked into was someone asked me. They said, "Oh, and I don't think we have a housing shortage." And this was someone that was a housing developer, right? Like, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm like. And they're like, how do you know? And I didn't have the answer. So I went back and I did some research and I'm like, okay. And this is like, for a healthy housing market to exist, you need to have like 1.15 units per household in this. And that just means that like if someone sells, they can buy and you can kind of keep it going.
There's some sort of rollover,
Yeah. So your master's in economics is all over that, right? Like or before. In Maine, we're actually not that far off from that, but we are off the national average on percentage of second homes. We're at 20% of the stock as second homes. The national average is 5%. If you back that out of the calculation on both sides, it's at 1.05, which is a housing crisis.
That's horrible. Yeah, that's horrible. Right?
That's a housing crisis. And like it's like a red, everything flashes, and it says like you're gonna have like mega inflation on prices because there's not enough stock. And it's like for the current number, if you add 42,000, you get back into the green. And that is without assuming any population growth, which is the oldest in the country.
Right.
We should probably add some more over time, right? So like, I think that's where you could debate whether the 80,000 or whatever it is, like that's where it's like higher than that is what we need over the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah,
right?
no question.
Yeah.
There is a strain, though, I will say, of people who argue that we don't have a crisis, or we at least don't have as bad of a crisis, because what's really happening is, and this is really kind of a Southern Maine phenomenon, I will admit, But the whole immigration situation in the state with asylum seekers and everything that like Portland and South Portland and the surrounding communities are doing to actually like house folks, it's started with hotels, but now it's obviously like specifically designed housing for a lot of that community. The argument goes that group of people is taking up otherwise usable space that people could be using for rents and whatnot, and that's a big part of the problem. I've always pushed back on that. Because even if that is the case, and I just don't think that the numbers are enough that it. I was going to say,
is it 42,000? I would have to dive into like the numbers on that.
It's a significant number of people, but it's not the thing that's. The entire country has a housing problem.
Right.
Right. Maine is not alone on this one. Ours is pretty bad, but it's not any worse than places that really don't have an immigration asylum issue like this at all. Like the asylee thing is like something that mildly exacerbates it to me, but it's really a fundamental problem that's far beyond that, and it's a problem of supply. And if we actually allowed building in this, you could have all the immigrants on the planet come here, and you'd still be able to build stuff, right? And we're just not really doing that to respond to what is needed for the citizens who are trying to find housing right now. You can literally do like a mass deportation that, say like Trump is trying to do right now, and every one of them goes away, and I think you'd still have this crisis. I think it's still there.
It would still be there. Yeah. I think that's right. I mean, and then if you look at affordability, right, where I was my three things, housing and energy are like two of the largest parts of the budget for someone. And so like those two problems are really hurting regular Mainers.
But as you watch what they do at Augusta, not dealing with either one of those really too much. They might talk a little bit about housing and stuff, but they didn't do much.
That's right.
They made a little minor change to the net energy billing system, but not really anything that's going to cause any substantial savings for anybody. So
it was a tweak, and go look at it some more and come up with another program. And
it's a punt. Yeah. They were punting down the field. To use a football analogy.
Make the talking point less salient.
Right.
When you come into next year's election cycle.
That's it right there. It's definitely designed
even
for the
though
election.
It's still high. Prices are still high. You're not going to see a drop in electricity prices between now and then.
But what you're seeing them do instead is really shocking to me. I mean, I had that conversation with Ryan Fecto last week that you referenced, and you and I were talking about it a little bit off the air. What an interesting conversation it was. The question I asked him was basically a pretty simple one that I just still haven't got an answer to from him or anyone else, which is that the budget has gone up from $7.1 billion all the way to 11.6, and they're still talking about spending more. They're going to come back and take stuff off the table and spend more money, right? So
it's something like 2.5 or 3 more than inflation would have done it, right? Yeah.
By law, inflation would have brought it up to like 9.3. So it's like $2 billion, 2 plus 3, $2.3 billion at least.
2.5. Round up. Yeah, the 2.5. Yeah.
So for all that extra money, right? Do you feel like you're getting ROI?
No.
Do you feel like you're getting like, are your roads better? Are your schools better? Like, are they actually worse?
The schools are worse, right? Yeah. The spending's gone up, the results have gone down, right?
So what the hell are they doing?
Yeah. It's one of those things where like I've been thinking a lot about this. Some of it is like because you can. Like you got the surplus, and like you start to say like, oh, okay, well, what are we going to do with this? Well, we'll add this, we'll do this. And you start to add probably a lot of small efforts on things that, they might even be well-meaning, right? But they just don't move the needle, right? Because they're not priority, they're not focused. It's just like, I got it, I'll spend it, right? Mm-hmm. Which is in business, like you would never do it that way, right? This is where you would think, well, I am investing it in my like top 3 or 4 priorities, right? So I think a lot of it's that. A lot of it is, like the COVID one-time program. Some of it's been converted into like ongoing costs. Yeah. I think
that's the thing. Once it's ever built into a budget, it stays there for all time.
People, right? I mean, headcount is sticky, and it's hard to move, and they have voices too, and so like that's difficult. And so I think a lot of it is just because I ask myself like, why does New Hampshire have half the budget and the same number of people? Mm-hmm. And it's because they've had to figure out how to do more with less. And I'm not looking over in New Hampshire and saying like, their schools are worse, right? Mm-hmm. Or their roads are that much worse, or like anything, right? It's not like it's bad. It's just that they've had to figure out creative solutions because of resource. Actually, having resource constraints allows you to come up with creative solutions. Yeah. So
I think that's the story of New Hampshire, honestly, is that, and you're right, by the way, like if you haven't looked at any of these numbers, You should. I know that some people say that New Hampshire's budget is like $15 billion. But
that's if you add up. It's not apples to apples.
Yeah, they count money differently than we do. Like our general fund is not all the money we spend either. If you wanted to throw in the federal funds and all the things they count, ours would be well over 20. Like it's
30 actually. It's double. Because I did that after that interview. I was like, Matt's going to ask me about this. I got to know. And so like I put it in. I did the math. I looked at it, and comparing to apples, it's half.
Yeah,
right. Like
it's shocking.
Yeah,
but if you try to count the same thing we count, it's half too. Like they spend 6.3 or something like that of state funds to do stuff.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do they do it, right? And a lot of people just don't seem to understand like compounding interest or something like that, because it's kind of the same phenomenon, right? Back in I can't remember what year exactly it was like 1972 or whatever. Maine and New Hampshire both did not have an income tax. Neither one of them did, right? They had a debate in both houses or both legislatures that year that they instituted in Maine. Maine decided to go with it. New Hampshire decided not to. And the next year, did that matter all that much? No, not really. Their budget, might have crept up a little bit, but just like, $5 million here and $10 million there. Yeah. And New Hampshire's didn't because it couldn't. You know what I mean? Like there was a constraint
because it couldn't. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
But then over time, we're going to increase the income tax by 0.5%, and then it goes up to 1.5 or 2 or 3, and then you collect more, and then that's worth another 20 or 30 million or 50 million, and you have it, so you spend it, which is the point you're making a minute ago.
Yeah.
And then as time goes by, that just compounds itself and compounds itself and compounds itself until you get a point in time now where you're spending double. We did a report 10 years ago. It's called "How Does New Hampshire Do It?" Which is worth revisiting, I think, on our part. We should probably rewrite it. But back then, it was definitely, we spent more than New Hampshire did, but it wasn't this bad. It was more like 1.5 or 0.5%. 50% more than they spent instead of 100% more. Instead of doubled, it was like half again as much.
Yeah, our gap's gone up by 50%.
Yeah, so our gap has gone up significantly because we get the money and we spend it.
Yeah.
That's it. And they constrain themselves. They just can't do it. And so they say, well, what really matters?
Well, they call that the entrepreneurial gap. Like when you have less resources, then you have like the goals that you need to go after. Like you find ways. Humans are really good at finding ways to do it in that setting. If you fix a variable like that.
Yeah. Well, if you were to live in either state, right, and you went to New Hampshire and walked around, like, do you see more homeless people? Do you see more drug abuse? Do you see more jobless people? Do you see, more potholes? Do you see worse school? And the answer is no on all this stuff. And if the answer is no, you got to start asking yourself the question of like, what the hell are we buying with all this extra money?
Right.
And it's a list of things that are I guess nice to haves, not wants, not needs. Right.
Yeah. I think that's right. And I mean, I think we need to review every new position that's been created in the last like 6 or 7 years.
Do me a favor and review the old ones too.
Well, fair. And maybe, first you need to set priorities, like what the goals are at, and like, do we have the resources to go do that? And then you need to go and look at like all the new ones and maybe even the old ones. But you got to, Rome wasn't built in a day, so you got to start in chunks.
Well, that's a very good point. I mean, this took like 50 years to get to the point we're at now. If you're unwinding it, it's going to take a while.
Yeah. And then also, I do think we're in a moment, and I know it's like catchy to say like Doge for Maine, but so that's not exactly what I'm going to say, but like it's with what's happening with technology, like what you can do now with AI to build things. Like you don't need a high-end software engineer to build service. Like you just need someone that can like describe what they want to build and then someone to check the work. Like I think you could imagine building a group, like a team that's got like a product manager, like an AI person, like that you deploy out and say like, how do you recreate 5 of these government services in a way that we give the same, if not better experience for the Maine people and at less cost over time, and show some quick wins and then go out and look at more expansively, because it's a time where I've never seen before what you can do with, like in the last 2 years, what you can do with technology they call it state capacity, like building state capacity. Like we need to build that muscle stat, because I think it can help out with both spending, but also like experience with government services at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I haven't asked you yet, like sort of what your agenda is. We've been talking about a lot of issues, obviously a lot of the problems that Maine faces and maybe some of the things that we can kind of tackle to do something about it. But like you're in there on day one, right? And all of a sudden you have found yourself, governor of Maine. Congratulations. conversations.
Yeah.
What is it that you really feel like is your main priorities, the things that you're going to work on the most, and what are you going to tackle, and like how are you going to do it? We're talking about like spending and taxes, for instance, right? Like some people just say we're going to try to get to a zero income tax, and we're going to do it by doing it this way, that kind of thing. Other people don't think it's realistic, and so we're going to try to do something that tries to control spending a little bit before we get to that point. Do you have a philosophy on how you want to approach not just that specific issue, but really what your priorities are?
Three buckets of priorities we've been dancing around, but like to crystallize them is like we need to make it more affordable. So we need you need to build more units, and we need to like almost like housing crisis commission to go forth and do like to put these things into place quickly that can go happen. We need the same for energy, right? Like 2 is like on opportunity. I think we need to figure out the way we create jobs across the state and not just in Southern Maine is we need to find areas where we have a competitive advantage and build and focus on how we can both recruit companies, create companies, incentivize companies, and make sure that we have the talent and the investment in them. For example, like we need to make sure that we have a strong cluster in the maritime industry. The United States' largest the largest national security concern right now is boat building capacity, in case there's a conflict in the South China Sea. Not just like Bath Iron Work destroyers, it's just commercial shipbuilding, all these. 50% of the world's boats are built in China, 3% are built in the US. Maine should create a bunch of jobs there. We should have companies lined up. We should have a strategy there. We should attract people. We have a protected coastline. We have a long coastline. We have a heritage of it. And so like that's a place where we're, from an economic development standpoint, focus on that, advanced forest products, life science, and to really do it well. State spending, like that is a priority day one because we can never get to a point where we can cut taxes unless we spend less. Right?
What is the priority there? Is it trying to just simply get it under control? Is it trying to actually lower it?
Lower it. Yeah, lower it. So it's we can't.
It's a tall order. The only time that's ever happened.
Yeah. When was this? Tell me more about
2007. 2008. Yeah, when the financial crisis happened, Baldacci.
Because we had to.
You had no choice.
Yeah, he was forced
to cut.
Yeah.
Even LePage, I think the best budget he ever had was basically flatlined. Like he never actually went down.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Mills has so broken all the rules about how much spending that you can do. Like she's gone up by 65% in one.
Longley didn't cut the budget back in the day. No.
Well, not. See, I went back to I think like 1982.
I want to get
or something like that. So Longley may have.
Whatever. Yeah,
I'd have to look at that. Well, the thing is, you'll find this out is like the record keeping on budgets in the state is pretty crappy.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. Okay, but I can at least say as far back as Brennan, the only time it's ever really gone down was Baldacci that one time. So do you believe it's possible? Do you think it's politically feasible to be able to actually take what is today an 11.6 or 11.8 or whatever it is when they're done and knock it down to 11 and 11.4, 11, to go down?
I will say it's necessary. The one thing that gives me pause is we've got to figure out how to, and maybe we like you're putting together a budget as the governor in like a month, right? Like you're coming in that first budget, right? Like to make wild changes, which I'm working on it now. Like you got to start working on it now almost, right? So the timing is not perfect, but the mission would be to go and to cut it a good percent because I think we are one of the highest tax states in the nation. We keep adding taxes to things. Like it can't keep going that way, and unless we make a cut there, I don't see how we sustain. So,
and you mentioned taxes, and if you ever get the spending under control, you might be able to tackle it. Is that your goal to try to do something about that?
Yeah.
Do you have a target or an idea of what you want to try to actually do? I mean, is it like a flat tax down to a certain percent? Is it like eliminating it entirely? Is it what is it you're trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think the aim would be to get to entirely on the income tax.
Yeah.
I say that without cutting the spending, I think that's just a talking point versus I need to do the math to get to the point where we get there. But it's doing that would allow so many more people to come in to create jobs to do things that I think would help out at other places. That would be the aim. The zone of possible agreement or ability is still under consideration.
Yeah, I mean I can't remember the state that did it this year because I've been too busy to keep up on it. But if I'm not mistaken, like a Georgia or an Alabama or one of those states down south actually put in a trigger this year where it was like basically, if I think you've heard this idea from Grover Norquist occasionally, whereby if you have some sort of surplus, you're buying down the rate every time that happens.
Yeah.
So you have to apply X number percent of it to tax savings or whatever. So, 7% becomes 6.8 and 6.8 becomes 6.7. And it takes like a decade or, 15 years or whatever, but you actually eat it down slowly over time. That may be the most feasible reaction because people say getting rid of it entirely, and I am 100% on board. But
sure, it makes sense.
But you're going to have to find some way of either cutting or replacing billions of dollars if you do that because we are so reliant on the income tax.
Well, and to your point,
that's the issue, right?
As you, like, if it's only gone down once in 2007,
right,
without a plan to cut, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, whatever billion, right? Like more, 10 billion, right? Is it 2/3 of the budget?
Yeah, it depends on the year, but
right. Like that is.
That's the thing is it's most of it,
right? It's 2/3 of the budget, right? Yeah. So it's like, okay, we're gonna whack 2/3 of the budget. Great, like where's that coming from? And like, there's also like. We need to balance. So like, how's it going to balance? And so like,
but don't you have to attack some certain like sacred cows to do that? Like for instance, going back to that interview with Fecto, right? Education is a mess in this state. But if you were to listen to Janet Mills right now and some of her allies in the legislature, they're all bragging about it. They're saying that education is so awesome because of the 55%, 55%, 55%.
We talk a lot about inputs, but we don't talk about outputs.
Yeah.
I think it's like we have so many people.
It is an input,
on
but it's such a powerful talking point for them because to cut even a single dollar out of the education budget to most people out there, it sounds and feels like you're hurting kids, you're hurting teachers, you're hurting the education system. Like we need more money, not less. We got to pay our teachers more. You get those arguments, right? So unless you find some way of breaking away from that idea, I don't know how you can really cut a significant amount of our income tax.
Well, if you look at education and healthcare, right, those are the two major buckets in the budget.
Yeah,
and those are tough nuts to crack, right? I think on healthcare. What do we have 400,000 people on Medicaid now.
We do indeed.
2.5, 3x from LePage administration.
Yeah, I think it was 275,000 or something.
Okay,
like that.
So people have been
like
saying 2.5 to 3. That math doesn't count. Doesn't math. Actually.
You would think that I would know that off the top of my head.
Yeah, I thought it was like 180, but maybe not.
It might have been. Yeah. Well, it was. Look, it was hovering around 200. We could say that
it was less. Okay,
a little less, a little more. Who cares? It's right around 200. It's certainly a lot more now because of expansion. Yeah.
Yeah, and that unto itself has hurt the rural hospitals, right? I mean, if they're getting,
you want to explain that because I don't think a lot of people understand why.
Well, so if you think about,
because a lot of that was in this Medicaid debate in the Big Beautiful Bill stuff, right? Is like it's going to kill rural hospitals to get people off Medicaid.
Well, there's a lot of nuance in here, right? Like world before, like people on Medicaid, it wasn't like they all didn't have health insurance. Right. A lot of them were getting health insurance through the Affordable Care Act, through the exchange, which were commercial plans that then they got moved on to Medicaid because it was a better deal and like it was the first line of defense. Medicaid, Maine Care itself pays hospitals for services, depending on the service, right, less than what it's worth to deliver the service.
Correct.
So every time they do the service, they're in the hole, but they get some money on if someone's uninsured, they might get $0, right?
Yeah.
But they get some money. But the more you shift to getting 80, 90 cents on the dollar for every service, the more you're in the hole for every volume you lose money on.
Right.
And if you've taken someone from a commercial plan that was even bought through the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, which actually pays more than the service is worth oftentimes, onto, so like say it's $1, get 10% margin onto none, like onto losing money. Like you now are moving like any place where they could have been making money to losing money every service, and they still have to pay for the hospital, they have to pay the doctors, they have to pay for all these things. And then the state does things like, oh, we're not going to pay you for 90 days or 100 days. And so you're saying, okay, so 60, 70, 80% of my volume isn't going to pay me for 90 days.
Yeah.
I need to figure out how to fund.
And when they do, it's not enough.
And then they do, it's not enough. I need to figure out how to pay. So you just sort of weaken them. And so like long-term, the solution is like, we need more jobs and opportunities in the rural communities.
You need more real healthcare plans.
Right. So they have real healthcare plans that pay for it. Short-term, there's some like some fixes potentially. Maybe you do try to move more people to the ACA. I know that's been cut a little bit. Maybe you try to do. Maybe I actually think, given I'm on the board of the American Telemedicine Association also, and I think that you're never going to do a surgery through telehealth, but there's a lot of ways to bring access to care to people in their homes, where they, instead of driving 2 hours, they can be reached for different things. And that as a state Medicaid plan, you have authority over what you cover and you don't cover, and you can opt in that way. That we could reimagine what is covered and what's not covered, and keep people out of hospitals and in homes at lower costs to the state. And then once they do get to hospitals, they have the services that they need. I think there's a service delivery, there's a payment mix solution, and also for rural hospitals, I have a lot of friends doing things like bringing cancer care through telehealth to the rural hospitals, which are places they make money. Like thinking about different services we could. I guess as the government, I'm not telling them what they can do and not do, but we can we can loosen what we cover such that they can do innovative things to allow them.
Well, you're incentivizing them.
You can incentivize them to do it through what we have.
Yeah, I'm glad you explained that, because it's lost on so many people, and it's frustrating to me that it's lost on so many people when we lived through all this before. When you go back to the Baldacci years, I mean, the whole hospital debt thing that LePage bragged about for years, that, he's saying, paid off the hospitals and stuff. It was all Medicaid induced, right?
Yeah.
Like, they did the same thing. They expanded the population. Yeah. They had too many people on it. They weren't getting the payments that they needed in these hospitals, so it was putting them underwater. Yeah. Then they couldn't pay them because the government didn't have the money, so you had IOUs, and you're off to the races. Like, that's,
you're back in this cycle.
You're in that cycle. And then ultimately, when we started to institute work requirements and we applied a little bit more scrutiny to the Medicaid system and brought the number of people on it down, and you sort of dealt with paying the hospital bill that you had because you were actually able to fiscally save money and figure out how the government could pay for stuff again, it actually reset everything a little bit. It didn't make suddenly they weren't rolling in cash or anything like that. But the danger zone was gone, right? The danger zone was gone. And now we just repeat. It's rinse, wash, repeat. And what's frustrating to me is, say you get elected, one of the other Republicans gets elected, you'll fix it again.
Right, we'll fix it.
You'll fix it again.
Yeah.
And then somebody gets elected behind you and they're going to mess it up again because we just don't learn these lessons about what the complexities that you just talked about, what they actually do in the real world.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I don't think we don't think a lot about the second order effects of all decisions, right? It's you look at any policy, I think people are really good at talking about like if you do this, then this happens. But they're not really good at being well, but what about the other stuff, right?
Yeah. And it's once you do that, then what happens?
Yeah. And I think that's where the real both opportunities and downside problems are, in second order effects on things.
That's a really good point. Well, the other aspect to all of the things that we're talking about here today is political reality, and that's something I've talked to a lot of your predecessors about who've done this podcast already. In order to accomplish, you want to make the budget smaller, right? You want to start dealing with eligibility tightening and whatnot. You have to have political support in the legislature to make that happen. Yeah. Do you have a vision for accomplishing that? Obviously the governor and the person who's running for it is the sort of leading the charge in some ways, right?
Yeah.
You guys once more into the breach, dear friends, right?
You write the budget first, you do these
But
things.
also when you're running though, you're the one that defines what the Republican Party is, what the conservatives want to do, et cetera, right? How do you drag the House and the Senate with you when you're running? Well, and so you get what you need to do
Let me tell you, do you know the state that had the most Republican legislature wins last cycle?
Last cycle?
Yeah.
You mean the biggest delta, the change?
The biggest gains in Republican seats.
That's a good one. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Vermont.
Yeah,
Vermont.
Well, it's because they're so low.
No. Vermont had.
I did know that they were quite successful.
Yeah, and it was half of. Well, I'm comparing gross and net here.
Yeah,
but their gains were half of the total net gains across the country. Was Vermont, and why that happened was they focused really heavily on property taxes and affordability, and the governor said look. you know, your property tax, I forget what went up X%.
Yeah.
I need help, right? Like, and this is the state that probably, I don't know what the percent delta for Harris was, but it was one of the largest in the country.
Yeah.
Nikki Haley won in there, right? So they had a lot of wins. And I think, to me, it's those issues are ones that I think we can get Republicans elected on in the House and the Senate. They're ones that, we can get some bipartisan support for, and they're ones that a lot of people care about. They're ones that are harder to get like evangelists out for it, right? Mm-hmm. But they're ones that a lot of people care about, and so figuring out how to get more evangelists for these issues will be part of my challenge, and do that well. We'll bring a strong set of legislators.
Well, it's partly you just got to get everybody on the same page.
Correct.
Everybody's got to be talking the same language.
Correct.
At the same time to the same people.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's right.
You think you can do that in such a famously stubborn state?
The fiercely independent Mainer, you mean?
I'll use the word stubborn.
Yeah. Stubborn. I like that. I mean, I'm an optimist, so I think you can, but I think it's gonna be it's going to take consistency. Leadership. It's going to take leadership. It's going to take relationship. It's going to take a lot of the things that I think I bring, but I think that is necessary to do that.
Yeah. Well, that's why you're running, right?
Yeah, of course.
You think you can do it?
Yeah. Any candidate ever come on and say, like, I'm not the one? Because that would be...
No, but I'll give David Jones credit. He did say he was sitting in your chair. I listened to
this, yeah.
Like 2 weeks ago or whenever he did it, and he said something to the effect of like, I hope I win, but if I don't, one of them's fine. I was like, all right.
Okay, David, I love it. Yeah.
Honest, I'll take that.
Yeah. So, people love the authenticity. Yeah.
Well, they do, though. I mean, I would encourage everybody running, yourself included, to just be you. I mean, don't try to be something you're not. And I certainly don't perceive that in you right now. You're being pretty straightforward. It's just a frustrating thing that I see in politics a lot, where people perceive that everyone wants them to say something, or they want to say it a certain way, and so they just play act. They're little actors in a movie.
Yeah,
and it's frustrating. Just be you.
I've been thinking about that too, right? Look, this is an endeavor where everyone starts low probability, and every day you work to increase it, right? And things change around you, and it's which is super interesting. As an entrepreneur, that's sort of how you build a company, right? But what would I regret the most? I would regret the most losing and doing it in a way that's not me, right? But on the flip side, if I can be who I am and talk about the things I care about and get out there and I'm going to come up with ideas. There's going to be a lot of ideas we'll churn out over time. And if people are buying what I'm selling and they want that, great. Let's change the state. And if they're not buying it,
you got other stuff to do.
This is, there's plenty of, I got optionality out there. I'm not thinking about that, obviously, because I'm playing to win. But it would be a big regret if I wasn't myself and I lost.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, so as we wrap things up here, unless there's anything that we haven't touched on that you want to, if you're interested in helping with your campaign or getting to know Owen a little bit more, how do you get involved? I mean, I'm sure you got a website and everything all set up.
So a few things. You can go to www.owenformaine.com. That's the website. You can find
that was available?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I was going to say, first name for Maine is they're always stolen every time I look.
So Owen was a popular, you have an Owen.
I do have an Owen.
Yeah, exactly. That cohort has a lot of Owens.
There's 5 in his class.
Yeah, exactly. My generation, I was a unicorn. I was the Owen.
Yeah.
And now, thanks to you,
I was one of 7 Matts in my class.
Okay.
It was nobody names their kid Matthew anymore. But back in the 1978 to 84 window, everybody did. It was it was the Aiden of its time, I guess.
All your kids baseball players? Sorry, I'm off.
Yeah, no, they are. That's what the podcast is for, right? We're supposed to talk about stuff like this. Yeah, no. Well, I mean, the 2 girls are softball players, but
understood.
We still a little TBD on the 6-month-old. We don't really know yet how he's going to go, but I'm assuming he'll probably be a baseball player.
Yeah, I gotta make it. I mean, you keep us well informed of the home runs on Facebook. I get to see, and your son's at the University of Dallas. That's going okay.
6 weeks he's going. Yeah, he's just graduated high school, so he's going there this fall. And my wife and I were talking about it the other day, and it's right around the corner. We got to get our plane tickets. We got to get, I mean, we're probably going to buy most of the bedspreads and all the stuff that, we're not going to ship it. or
Well,
like
it's
drive his
no
car down.
coincidence he's going when Cooper Flagg's going to be there. And
He's so pumped about that.
Yeah.
That is so cool to replace, to replace Luca, thank you, with Cooper Flagg is such a great replacement for a Maine kid that's going down there. So, and it's cool too because that university is like 15 minutes away from the Rangers, from the Cowboys, from obviously the Mavericks. So
you go to the Bush Library down there.
you do. I mean, it's all right there.
Yeah.
So you can't really miss it. So it's a pretty cool area. And I don't know how much time you spent in Texas. Probably a lot.
I spent a fair amount.
You
there,
drive around, all over the country, I'm sure, to talk to entrepreneurs and stuff. But man, it is a cool place, that area.
How far to a Buc-ee's though? That's what I want to know.
Oh, good call. Yeah. That's actually, I didn't see one when I was down there.
I think it's like 30 minutes out of town. If I understand.
Honestly, I don't know Dallas that well. I've been to Texas a million times, and I've been to Dallas a few, but I've never really explored the city. So it actually will be kind of neat for me to go down and visit because I'll do that for like the first time is kind of really get to know.
I love it.
That area. He's in Irving technically, so it's like that's where all the sports stuff is. It's actually in Irving, but Dallas is right there. So yeah, it'll be cool. It was a good decision on his part. I think he gets to play baseball there. It's a really great school. I'm actually very. You know what's neat about it?
Is it a state school or a private school?
No, it's a private Catholic school.
Yeah.
What's awesome about it?
Sense, yeah.
They're like a great books school. Like he's gonna read Dante and stuff. Like it's
nice.
They don't screw around with a lot of the things that have driven me a little crazy in higher ed recently. All the sort of fluffy nonsense. Like no, they're gonna read Homer. Like they're gonna do serious things. It's a true liberal arts education.
Yeah, that's great.
And
which is really important. And I think in the world where AI is like I think that like critical thinking that you learn from that is going to be so important in the future where we're going.
Well, we didn't touch on this at all, but I would be interested to get your thoughts on. I mean, as somebody who was on the board of trustees for the University of Maine system, right?
Yeah.
And I know you really care a lot about UMaine. You and I are of a similar mind on that.
Yeah.
Very much love our school that we went to.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about college today? I mean, it has changed. See, I graduated high school in 1999 and then was at UMaine all the way till 2004.
Yeah.
But just that 20-year period, it's unrecognizable to me.
Yeah.
It's totally unrecognizable.
How so to you?
Well, the campus itself, of course, has changed quite a bit.
There's been a lot of building, particularly driven by engineering and research.
Yeah. And obviously all the sporting athletic stuff that the Alphon Grant is doing amazing stuff on.
Great stewards.
But I have paid attention to like curriculum and like attitudes in schools and some of the politics stuff. Like when I was there, it was certainly like a typical left of center state school, politically speaking or whatnot, but it was actually not bad. Like it really wasn't. I had professors who I knew 100% were conservative and had perspectives that were right of center.
It wasn't.
I had plenty I didn't know it all about.
Activist school either, right?
No, it wasn't.
Yeah,
there was a few professors that I had that were definitely left of center.
The peace studies guy or whatever.
Doug. Yeah. Oh my God, dude, mini story. But I went to school at UMaine when 9/11 happened. I was there from 99 to 2004.
Okay.
And I had his class because you gen eds and stuff, right? And for whatever reason, I took that dude's class in like philosophy or something like that.
Yeah.
That morning, I had a class with him, and I went.
Yeah.
Like they didn't cancel school until a little bit later in the morning. It was like noon or 11 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I went to it, and I dropped the class. I couldn't take it. Nope.
Okay, I guess his ad dropped first week. Yeah.
It was September.
You're like, I'm out.
See you later, because I just couldn't.
You might have dropped it anyways.
Take the W. Yeah. No, that was good. But like Amy Freed was like the most overt partisan. But even then, she wasn't really as she was still winking, nodding a little bit back then. So it just wasn't. They didn't proselytize at you. And today, I mean, I can't tell you because I'm not like going to school there or whatever. But just some of the things I hear about it, it sounds like it's shifting in a direction I don't love.
Yeah, I mean,
it's still better than a lot of schools.
I would say it's still better than a lot of schools comparatively. And in Maine, like I think at least the UMaine system is less activist than what you'd see in other places. And
USM's really bad though.
Yeah,
I hate to say. I mean, I know I don't want to get you in trouble or anything. I'll say it. When I was looking at places for my son and whatnot, I wrote it off.
That's a tough place culturally. That's a tough place, right? Yeah. There's some bright spots, as with everything, but it's there's some people there that would be better if they weren't.
Yeah.
But I would say like we serve so many first generation college students that you get people in that like are trying to like get to like better themselves, right? And I think from that, like the student body themselves are there for a lot of the right reasons. Like there's not a lot of rich kids that come in with like they have other endeavors. I think what's tough, the things I think about for university systems is what's happening with AI right now, where you can take can take knowledge and synthesize it and give it to you in any way, shape, or form, right? Like, what is the role of education within that? And
how do you still teach kids?
And how do you teach kids? And like, and what right before I stepped off the board, because I've stepped down, is I was chairing our AI work group, and what was interesting to me was there was we basically said we encourage the ethical use of AI, which we left that a little vague, but we wanted to do that, and we wanted to like see, and then we seeded some projects out there, and then we had people raise their hand that were doing interesting things, and there was a lot of people popping up all over, like faculty and staff, like that were experimenting when you gave them permission to experiment, and we're thinking about teaching differently. Like some people would take all their material and built it into a chatbot, and like you could interact it off hours and it would track how the students were interacting with it. Right. Like, and so they would know like how they were progressing in the lessons, and then they would do all like discussion based in class. Right. And so like they could see how and often people were engaging, and they do discussion based, and the professor was not getting any stupid questions via email. He was saying like the stuff about the syllabus, whatever. He said, I cut 50 hours of my life down from this. And so there's a lot of really interesting things happening.
And there's a ton of challenges too, obviously, trying to make sure that people aren't cheating, that they still are developing skill. The thing that drives me a little bit crazy, or worries me, maybe is the better way of putting
it. Yeah.
Is some of the studies that I've read about using AI and what it does to the skills like writing and reaching and
this
looking
is the
things up
MIT
and
study
stuff.
that just came out.
Yeah, it's
there was 30 people in it, or 40.
Granted,
let's
look, I'm an evangelist on technology.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's going to cause the Terminator to come kill us and stuff like that. I think this is a positive and good thing. It's like the next technological revolution. But I do actually worry that it can lead to an erosion of skills if you're too reliant on it. And one of the things that I would be challenged by if I was a professor right now would be how to get your students to continue to develop their writing skills in a way, in a world in which they can have ChatGPT basically write something for them. And I've seen and heard people are going back to the blue book, like they're, you know what I mean, like they're writing it by hand now.
Do it by hand,
which has its own issues and problems and slows things down and stuff like that. But I just, it's a brave new world.
But there's also exciting like you could simulate talking to Homer about his stuff, right? Like and with the period that he's in and the time frame, and like even get more rich context. So you could potentially do it in class with everyone, right? Like there's some cool things to do.
That's the challenge, is how to use it responsibly so that you're learning for real. I think and you're not just leaning on it.
Well, if we go education as a whole, right? Like third and fourth graders need to know how to read well, right? Like fixing that problem is foundational to any of this. Two is, I think, getting it initially in the hands of teachers and professors and encouraging them to experiment and seeing, like, I think will be really helpful, because it's hard to do a top-down strategy right now when it changes so much, but we do know that like working with the tools is how the workforce is going to want you to do it. And if we want to make Mainers the most resilient over time, like training people and getting them like in the game and encouraging them to be in the game is going to be really helpful. And then from there, as things evolve, we just need to stay on top of it and think about, and look at the evidence, look at the studies, look at things and think about it. But it's like right now, if you're largely in K through 12, it's cheating. Like AI is cheating, right? And I get it in some regard. On the other regard, people are coming to the UMaine system where the professors are starting to lean in, and the students are saying, "I thought this was cheating. I was never used it before." So,
well, it's all in how you use it. It's like, what's your intent? What are you trying to do? And if your intent is to try to get around a lesson and get it done and not actually learn the stuff and just kind of like complete the assignment and check the box, cheating, right?
Yeah.
Like, but if it's actually aiding your learning in some fashion and you're actually supplementing it and it's getting richer, then it's obviously not that.
You could potentially change some of education, which University of Maine Presque-Isle has done this with their Your Pace program, which is the fastest growing program in the system and has like doubled in students in the last 3 years each year.
Yeah.
It changes it from time to competency. Right, like it's instead of saying you must spend X hours on something, as soon as you can prove someone knows it, they can move on. And so like it's all in proving they know it. Like I think it's going to become more and more important in that world.
That's fascinating. Well, we could probably have a separate podcast on this entire conversation. I imagine.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll just invite you back and have another conversation.
I'll come back anytime, Matt.
Well, it was a real pleasure. Obviously, again, it's owenformaine.com. So if
right.
you want to learn, I assume if you want to donate, there's a nice big fat donate button.
No, we need a lot of people behind the movement, Matt. So feel free to chip in.
I know how important the money is. In this kind of I mean, you can't. You
got to be
go
likable,
statewide.
credible, and known. If no one knows who you are and you can't market,
You got to buy
then,
TV stuff. You got to send out mailers. It's the way that it works.
All the stuff.
Nobody likes that it's like that, but it is the way that
It's
it
just
is.
the way it is.
Well, appreciate it. Thanks so much. Owen McCarthy again here as part of our series on gubernatorial candidates running. He's running as a Republican for the 2026 nomination. All of that voting is next year, so we're getting the head start on all this by having these conversations, but appreciate Owen being with us, the other candidates, and you listening and watching this as well. So that's it for us on this particular edition of the Pine Tree Pulse podcast, and we'll be back again next week with more.
Great. Thanks for having me, Matt.
This has been Pine Tree Pulse, disrupting the Maine political machine, one podcast at a time. Visit MainePolicy.org to learn more, or follow the Maine Policy Institute on social media. Thanks for listening, and make sure to join us again next time.